If you have good cellular health at the quantum level in your eyes, in your brain, in your body, in your muscles, your fascia system, everything in your biology, you're going to optimize your performance. And listen, boxing is not easy. You're going to get hit a lot. What you were doing right now, that's where we want you.
How did the Marines shift your mindset? Today on NeuroVision Edge, we're joined by Dr. Roman Velasquez. He's a Marine veteran
Woohoo.
leading combat sports and neuroperformance. He works with many elite MMA and boxing athletes using cutting edge neuroscience and cognitive training tools to help sharpen that reaction time, enhance the focus, and build that mental toughness that you need for these type of sports. Because we're talking milliseconds that decides the fight. Dr. Vasquez, welcome to the show. Truly honor and privilege to have you here. I'm excited.
Hey, Doc Shah, thank you very much. Thank you for having me here. It's really exciting to see guys, talented guys like you that, have spent so much years in academic studies, in your profession. And still, there's a lot of athletes don't know that you exist and people like you exist to get their performance to that next level. So, hey, red carpet is rolled out for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, we're just trying to shout it out there. So if there's athletes who are looking for that elite level performance, like at least they'll know where to go, what to do, and what to target so they can get better. But on that note, can we talk about what
Yeah,
is quantum biology and how do you use that to help these fighters? Because
I
I've
think
heard a lot about it from not only you, but other people. And I'm just curious if we can make it more layman term and talk about the quantum biology. This is a very, like not a catchphrase or trendy word, but it's becoming heard more and more now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, quantum biology is the study of quantum physics as they apply to our biology. At the most minute, tiniest level in our cells are atoms, protons, neutrons, electrons, these quantum particles that make up our energy source within our body. The mitochondria, for example, which is a power plant for our cells, right? They do a lot of things for the cell. And from a quantum perspective, that mitochondria works within an electron transport chain, which is also called a restoration chain. And it's a metabolic process at the tiniest level within the cell. And I will tell you that of all the trillions of cells that we have, each cell has thousands of mitochondria in there. So we are power plants. We are solar power plants. We're driven by energy, and the quantum process is very much there. It very much applies to what we do in sports and in life. From a sports perspective, it's very important because performance starts at the cellular level. Just like we were discussing a little while ago, if an athlete is at a professional level, but yet has a certain deficiency with the eyesight, and you and I know that in elite level sports, 20/20 vision is not everything, and it's not all. You need a lot more, and that's why there's specialty guys like you that take care of those things and make sure that that professional athlete or that athlete goes up the next level and optimizes his visual acuity. So that's very same thing, if you have good cellular health at the quantum level, okay, in your eyes, in your brain, in your body, in your muscles, your fascia system, everything in your biology, you're going to optimize your performance. That's why I say performance starts at the cellular level.
So would you say that a way that we can describe this is the quantum biology is having that good foundation to make sure the cells are doing what they need to be to optimize your body?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll tell you something as simple as getting your circadian rhythm right. Circadian rhythm is very important because the suprachiasmatic nucleus that's in the brain is the master clock of all the clocks that we have in our body for every organ. If your circadian rhythm is out of whack, and we've seen as we've worked with athletes that, for example, they have a full-time job too, and they work at nights. They have a night shift. Okay. And as soon as they get off from working 12 hours, they go to the gym, or they go out for a run, and now they're taxing their bodies. Their circadian rhythm is trying to keep up as to what's going on. Is it daylight? Is it middle of the day? Is it night now? Is it, And so, and then you top off the screens, the blue screens, the computers, the phones, all this blue light toxicity, and it just ruins that circadian rhythm. And why is the circadian rhythm important from a quantum level? Because you want your hormones to hit during the day at very precise times to optimize your health and thus optimize your performance.
So, when it comes to this quantum biology, cell energy, obviously we're talking about sleep, we're talking about getting the right nutrition, the right rest, but how do you make it a part of the training? Obviously, you're probably telling them avoid screens an hour before going to bed, maybe avoid screens an hour before training or fighting. But what other things can you do during training or during the whole fitness protocol that can optimize this?
Well, it starts with the circadian rhythm. Stack your sunrises. If you can beat the sun for it to come out the first 30 minutes of the sunrise, it's got the perfect near infrared, infrared light that comes out. Is very important for the human body. It's got the right amount of UVB light that's important for that circadian rhythm, for your suprachiasmatic nucleus, as well as for your eyesight and your retina.
So sun's rising. We want to beat the sun, so get up before the sun rises.
Right as the
And
sunrise, yeah.
are we just spending time outside? Or are you doing meditation? Or are you actually training outdoors?
You can do either or. If you can train while stacking that sunrise, more better for you. And what I recommend is go barefoot out on the dirt. You can go barefoot on cement. That's
Uh-huh.
fine. You can still ground, but I like grounding on dirt or grass and looking at that sunrise coming up. The first 30 minutes are so important for the human body. Hey, it's a thing of evolution, Years ago, we depended on those sunrises to wake us up. Now we're dependent on these things, these phones to wake us up and
Yeah.
whatnot. And the first thing we do is check our emails, check social media. And
Yeah.
so that's important, right? Start off by stacking your sunrises, ground to the earth. Okay. Get as many workouts in outside, out in the sun. I know sometimes it's very hot in some areas like Phoenix, Arizona, Albuquerque, El Paso, the Southwest, where it gets really hot, but you could do it on a tree shade. It turns out that the leaves don't absorb the infrared. So when the infrared is coming down and you're underneath the shade on the tree, that infrared spills over onto your body. So that's so important. And these are all free hacks that we have to do. And drink also the water that you drink. I recommend you drink spring water, okay? Because spring water has the right amount of alkaline from tectonic plates, and it's got the right amount of sunlight that's exposed for your area. And if you drink spring water that has the same light information signature where you live at, even better, because the mitochondria pairs up that information and it knows that sunlight code is the very same thing. That's why I have the fighters always eat locally and seasonally, because it's a story of light. What grows from photosynthesis has got the very same light code where you live at. And that's the most beneficial for your body.
So eat locally and local spring water.
Spring water is the best. The mitochondria, when you have infrared, one of the services that we do too is photobiomodulation, transcranial photobiomodulation, because we want to make sure that, the mitochondria, the red light, it turns out that cytochrome C oxidase, which is stage 4 of the electron transport chain within the mitochondrial function, it absorbs red light, and that red light causes the mitochondria to have a reaction to create ATP when it pairs up with a proton on the electron transport chain to create ATP, adenosine phosphate. And it does a lot of other things, like sets off a reactive oxygen species, which is a mild oxidant that signal for action to transcribe genetic factors within the mitochondria to balance and regenerate. So all those things are very important. And it turns out that spring water has a very good structure for it to become exclusion zone water, structured water within our cell networks, which is more of a gel-like substance and not watery. When you get cut and you bleed because of a fight or whatever the case may be, you don't bleed the white water that we drink. You don't even see the water because it's
Yeah.
gel-like substance, and that's called exclusion zone water. It's the work of Dr. Gerald Pollack research, and it's very important. It's very important because this water, from a quantum perspective, it allows us to communicate through quantum coherence and entanglement. The motor cortex may be up here and you practice a stacking order for a particular fight combination, and you're relying on that visual input to come in to react and automatically hit those. It's not a matter of a signaling and the wire goes through here to the central nervous system. It's a matter of it's already entangled. In other words, when I see and I react and I process, this left hand is going straight to the chin. Okay. It's going to help, like you said, in milliseconds, right? Yeah, absolutely. So that's the quantum aspect to that type of athletic performance, because we want the body to be quantumly coherent by
So
doing the
just to break
things.
it down more, layman terms, when you were talking about the transcranial photobiomodulation, that's red light pretty much right on the skull,
Right.
right? And it's making the cells that we have in the brain generate more energy so it can regenerate things. It can create a better connection between each other and help you whether you're trying to get quicker reaction time or trying to recover from an injury, any of those types of things where you're trying to improve performance or recovery, it can help you with both of those things. Would that be correct?
Absolutely. And there's certain frequencies, all right? So it turns out from the electromagnetic spectrum, if you start take a look at the red light and the red light spectrum, there's various frequencies in there, and the frequencies that penetrate the skull into the brain tissue are 850 nanometers all the way up to 1070 nanometers. And those are the ones that we use specifically. And we focus a lot on the visual cortex because we want that visual cortex to be optimized. I
Right.
mean, free of inflammation, good blood flow,
Right.
good connection, good connectivity, just optimized because the eyes are going to be doing their job, And when we got doctors like you that specialize in that sports vision, we want that brain to be optimized. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like football, right? How do crush down a quarterback? You know, a good quarterback. You take away his good receivers, and that
Right.
quarterback is rendered ineffective.
Right.
Same thing. You want to render your eyes ineffective, don't optimize your brain. You don't let
Yeah.
it get
Right.
concussed,
It's the window.
just
Yeah,
don't
it's the
take
window
care of
to the
it.
brain. And that's really interesting, the wavelengths of light, right? For the eyes, we're looking at that 600 to 800 nanometer, depending on what we're trying to achieve. With
Yeah.
macular degeneration, now
Yeah.
photobiomodulation is approved for a treatment option. And
Yes.
that's closer to the 670-ish nanometer. But when it
Okay.
comes to like back of the cortex, or when it comes to specific things, the wavelength of light is going to be different. And that's where I think people who are just buying random red light units with different frequencies, or they're trying to use 600 nanometer, or they're trying to go IR, infrared light, and they don't know what they're doing, that's where I think they definitely need to consult a specialist like yourself or somebody who knows why we're using the right wavelength of light for the action that we want.
Yeah, and the protocols about it. And you're absolutely right. The good part and the good thing is that there's no side effects to the red light, the use of red light. And then the red light that's out there used commercially, the DIY do it yourselfer type of thing. It's good. If you're working to be an elite fighter, an elite level athlete, see guys like you and I, come over, talk to us. Let's have a call. Let's talk about strategy. We'll put you in the right direction, right?
Yeah. And that's the main thing, right? Is if you're at a higher level, you have to be efficient with your time. So randomly doing drills that you see, or doing a random light that you don't know what the purpose is for, that's where things get a little bit dicey, where
Yeah.
you're losing time
Yeah, you're
and
losing
not getting the
and you're
result you need.
probably you're probably doing more wrong than good for you.
Right.
It's like if you train at a gym and you're constantly watching amateurs, fight and you're sparring with amateurs and you're a pro level athlete. You're going to learn bad habits too from these guys because of the mirror neurons, right?
Yeah.
Your brain starts to really adapt, and it's a survival mechanism. If you're an elite level fighter, you got to train with elite level fighters, and you got to train with elite level trainers and work with a team in a holistic level. Yeah, I mean, today's elite level fighter has what a striking coach, a jiu-jitsu coach, a wrestling
Mhm.
coach, a strength and conditioning coach, a sports psychologist, might have a neurovisual coach, an
Yeah.
eye doctor, okay, a neurocognitive specialist. So this whole team is doesn't meet in a week and discuss where we're going. That's optimal, right? That
Right.
would be an optimal case where weekly meetings took place to show progress and what we're doing. Now that's, boom. That would be like optimal. But it doesn't happen that way, Most oftentimes the one that carries the brunt of the information is the athlete himself or herself. So when the time comes that you got to work with them, you're saying, okay, you learn to ask very specific questions because it's part of that metacognition, encouraging the athlete to become aware of their learning. That way, if they're learning, I'm learning too. And I learned to ask the right questions, like, for example, for fight sport, what type of fight combinations have you been working for this particular fight? Because the striking coach may be working with somebody else, or they're not scheduled to work with them. They're scheduled to work with us. That's very important. Why that's very important? Because now we can formulate the right neurocognitive stimulus to incorporate within those striking combinations and do some cognitive flexibility to task switching roles, put some load in their brain for them to mitigate that brain fatigue.
I mean, that makes total sense. If we take a step back away from the ones who have all these types of coaches and we go to more, let's say, high school, where we have athletes starting to train, it looks like they have a lot of potential. How would you recommend they start training, starting with the brain to the cage? What would be your way of getting that fundamental right before they get into some of the higher level stuff with different specialists?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first and foremost is the desire. What's in that athlete's heart? Do you really want to pursue this? By no means it's going to be easy. There's going to be a lot of letdowns. There's going to be a lot of pain. You're going to have to get very comfortable with pain. You're going to have to get very comfortable with being injured. You're going to have to get comfortable with putting in a lot of hard work. If that's what you want to do, then let's go for it, right? Start with the basics. Once you master those basics, then there's a line. Even you see this at the collegiate level, because let's face it, if you take a look at college football, for example, what's the percentage that makes it to the NFL?
Yeah.
Very, very little. For most college level players, their senior year is their very last year. They're going to play the game that they played for a long time, since probably grade school. At what level do you start to say, I'm going to go see Doc Shaw and I'm going to make him my neurovisual trainer? Okay. Why is that important? I think that needs to happen in high school immediately, because you're going to be instrumental in making this athlete, this student athlete, decide, I have gotten this elite level type of training and this is how good I am, but I have to get better. And that is the will right there, that will to be challenged. That's the
Right.
mid-cingulate anterior cortex that has to grow from accepting challenges after challenge. That part of the brain grows, and that's the will to live. That's the will to fight. Once that thing gets activated and gets the neural networks to fire good, that's what you need, right? That's what an athlete
Yeah.
needs. The rest of it comes with the skill, the right trainers, putting the right stimuli to work to get that. Let's face it, my job is to get the brain to become more efficient at what it does. That's it.
Right.
That's it. I don't promise anybody anything that you will win a championship. I make no promise of that. I will tell you that the only thing I promise is that your brain is going to be more efficient at what you do inside that ring or inside that cage.
Right. So that's the better decision making, the quicker responses, the ability to make adjustments, right? All of that gets faster, quicker, better.
Absolutely, because that's all handled by the brain, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the brain is a master conductor of all these things. And it's not when people say, he gassed out or she gassed out, it's like, man, she needs cardio or he needs cardio. Like, no, the brain throws in the towel first.
That's so key. The brain throws in the towel first, right? Because the brain
Absolutely.
controls the motor movements, right? It controls your decision making. It controls all of it. How do you work on that? So let's say you have someone who gasses out, right? And the brain fatigues, the brain kind of gives up midway through the fight. How do you work on something like that?
Yeah, we use a lot of technology that was once lab grade technology that's now readily available to and portable to be taken out to gyms. EEG sensors. We have various specific ones that we use. So within the drills that we're practicing with them, I put that EEG sensor on. I got my tablet. We're assigning him tasks to do. I'm looking at what's happening inside his brain. What type of
That's
brainwaves am
awesome.
I seeing? Is he decreasing? Is he going up, in amplitude? Is he going from beta waves into alpha waves? Is he, staying right there in the middle, in the border line of beta and alpha? Is he overthinking? Is he not overthinking? Until we see that sweet spot, we let him know. I said, what you were doing right now, that's where we want you. How did that feel? Like, so I was flowing and
Yeah.
something took over me. It was just like I was just going. I was in the zone. I said, that's what we want. That's where we want you. The other thing is teaching them how to quiet their brain. In fight sports, they got a minute in between rounds to
Mhm.
quiet their brain as much as they can and breathe and control that breath and just quiet that mental chatter. That's very important for them to stay focused. I mean, for a championship MMA fight, it's 25 minutes. We require 25 minutes of absolute focus, and
So
we train
with
for
your
that.
athletes, it sounds like, you're using the EEG, you're using different testing and all of that to figure out how to get them to that flow state where that brain is more quiet. Now, if we don't have that technology, how would you get someone to get into that flow state? Would it be having to use the technology, remember how you got there, or can you remember a time where you were in a flow state and be able to repeat something like that?
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's a great, great question because most athletes that have been playing out there for a while, they've been on that flow state. They know how it feels. They've experienced it. When you meditate and you quiet your brain and you go back to that place where you felt that and you use that to visualize what you're doing now and then practice visualizing, hey, like Austin Shaw, boxer. He's BKFC welterweight champ right now. When I was working with him, I took him on a fight that he was going to have in preparation for fight camp on the visualization process. He fought this guy 45 times in here.
Yeah.
It turns out in the brain, when you visualize, the brain doesn't know if it's happening for real or it's being imagined because the same neural networks fire. And every time they fire, neurons that talk together, communicate together, stay together. And the more
Right.
they do that, they become myelinated over time. The
Yeah.
myelination allows for that rapid signaling and communication to be like an 80-lane superhighway, and that's what you want. And that's the power of visualization. So that's one thing that you can do, and anybody can do to do that.
So you have an athlete who has been in flow state multiple times, and he understands the concept that, the neurons that fire together, we want to wire them and make this a permanent thing where we can get into flow state like whenever we want by command by using the power of visualization. So how would you like walk me through a basic visualization session you would have, maybe like session 1, where you would teach them, "This is how I want you to visualize how the fight should go down." Are we talking like all the way from cell visualization? Are we talking about sensory visualization? Like, what's your method of visualization for MMA and boxing?
You don't want to complicate it too much, right, Doc? You want to keep it very simple. And there's a series of steps. Number one, teach them what meditation is all about. What is quieting their mind all about? Once they learn how to quiet their mind with their breathing, then you take them into a state of relaxation. Just do a scan of the body, okay? Relax your shoulders, relax your biceps, your triceps. And then with their eyes closed, they're actually scanning their body. And they actually realized, oh, when he said relax your jaw, I didn't even realize that my jaw was tense,
Right. Yeah.
and
That's
most
getting
fighters
them
have a
to be
tense
aware.
jaw to them, but they start to realize, wow, these little certain things start to make neural connections, and that's introspection. Our brains are marvelous, right? This is an organ that contemplate the meaning of spiritualism and contemplate the vastness of interstellar travel and space and can contemplate on itself, contemplating on all these things. It's powerful. And they don't need to know all these powerful things that they can do, but they can know that they can quiet their minds. They can know that they could time travel in here and remember the past, learn from the past, be in the present, and know what to do in the future because we're going to practice visualizing it. So I take them through the whole body scan. Then
Okay.
I take him into, okay, you're being introduced inside the cage now, and I want you to hear what's going on. I want you to hear the ringmaster calling your name, where are you from? how much you weigh, where you been, and I want you to start getting hyped up. And you could actually see their chest start going because they're actually living it. And I say, hey, control your breathing, man. Just breathe in, breathe out. You know, self-talk to yourself. I'm the best. I'm the best there is right now. This is my house. This is my house. This is what I was born to do. That self-talk builds a lot of confidence in them. Then the first bell rings. See yourself closing in. See yourself moving. How do you feel? How are you moving? You can actually tell. Come outside of your body and go on the top. Take a look at yourself moving around. Is that the way you want to move? Are you doing exactly the same movement that you practice, that your coaches were teaching you what to do? So once you start doing all these things, and you might want to do it for 5, 10 minutes and then go to it further, but next thing you know, you've gone through an hour visualization process. And for them, it felt like 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Wow. You made a very interesting point a few minutes ago where you talked about time travel and going back in time. Do you have them visualize their, like, not prior to a immediate fight, but after a fight? Do you have them visualize to notice their mistakes? Do you have them go back and time travel and feel like they're in their body again to see what went wrong or what went right?
No, not really. What we preach is leave losses inside the cage. Okay.
Okay.
A loss, you learn from it, what went wrong, an after action report, kind of like what the military does. As a former Marine Corps guy, so, after action report is very important. What was planned to happen, what actually happened, and what do we learn? And after that, write it down. Everybody knows the learning from it, the after action, from it. And that's it. It's a done deal. It's not discussed anymore. It's a bygone. That loss is inside the cage. We live to fight another day. Let's go.
Right. So it's almost like you learned from that, you wiped it out, and you move on.
And you move on.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like you don't want to harper too much on it. Memory reconsolidation is very important. It turns out that, for a traumatic event that you want to forget, when you remember that traumatic memory, when it unearths, it becomes unstable up here. So within a certain period of time, that's why therapies are so important, that you introduce a better outcome, So when the memory seeps back down, it's an updated version of that memory. So over a period of time, what happens is that the emotional piece is pruned off. So there's no emotion to that memory no more. It's just a memory. We want that reconsolidation to take place like that quickly, and that's it.
Okay. Yeah, that's super interesting because everyone has different thoughts on that. But I think most people do it the way that you mentioned, where you move on from it and you focus on the positive. You can't dwell on the negative because your neurology is so sensitive and you don't want it focusing on anything negative for too long.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Because you'll keep doing it. Because we've seen fighters that actually practice a certain strategy, and they're going this strategy and the fight patterns and everything, and all of a sudden they get a hard hit, and it shocks them, and they revert back to making those mistakes. It's
Yeah.
almost like the brain went into a default survival mode. And those are the type of things that we work on. We know they're going to get hit hard, and when that happens, we want the default mode network to be wired for a higher performance. If this happens, then this takes place. Not, I don't know, I'm on a panic,
Yeah.
Yeah. And the brain does it automatically because of the over stimulus that we've done, and the repetitive nature of it. And we don't want to fall in a pattern because the brain recognizes patterns very quickly. So we want also to be randomized stimuli, that way it keeps your brain on top of things, that it's not a pattern, because a lot of tricky fighters will want to
Yeah.
trick you on patterns.
That reminds me of something. Well, not reminds me, but like for me, when we train vision, balance, and we're trying to train neurocognitive skills, we're trying to put them at a worse than game-like situation. We're trying to get their heart rate super high,
Yeah.
game pressure type situation. But how do you do that with boxing and MMA? I mean, you're not, are you punching them? I mean, how are you creating that game-like environment for them?
Yeah, the we don't do any of that. We don't get into the or none of that. We get more into the movement, to the reaction times. For an example, we're training with Arlene Blanco. She was ranked number one in what was then Bellator. She's out of Australia, and we were working with her, and she was fighting this one girl that loved to take down people, their
Mm,
opponents, just wrestle them down, just take them.
yeah.
And she was very fast. And Arlene was not fast at reacting to those defenses of takedown defense. So one of the things that we did with her, one of her cognitive flexibility drills, we were timing her to defend against a takedown with with lights, with with fit lights that give us a reaction time and reaction speed, right? So yeah, she started with an I think like 750 millisecond reaction time. She was going to be taken down. You know, when we were done at the end of the 8th week in training camp, um, she was reacting at 250 milliseconds on defense takedown,
Wow.
and during the match, she never got taken down, and she dominated
That's
the
3
match.
times faster.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
amazing.
Yeah, and she was I mean, she was and what it does, Doc, too, is, it elevates that confidence level so much because you show them you everything we do, we measure, right? So you show them the metrics, and you show them like, "Here, this is where we started. This is where you're at right now."
Love that.
And
Yeah.
they're walking around like their chest is
Yeah,
high,
like,
like,
"Look at my
"Oh,
improvement."
yeah," and then that level of confidence is what
Yeah,
they need, and then maybe the deciding factor on, you know what, this belt is mine.
right.
This championship belt is mine. And
Yeah,
I mean, that's their wired for performance. That's part of the
right.
why.
Yeah, and that leads to, like, championship mindset. But before we get into that, can we go back to metrics? What metrics are you measuring for MMA and boxing that you think are the most important?
Well, and it depends on what metrics we're talking about. You have your own metrics, for what you do with sport vision. Um, for us, so I'm not a sport vision guy like you are. So I rely on technologies that have proven to have a certain threshold of elite level performance. Okay, something like NeuroTracker. Okay, so one of the metrics that we measure is the ability for the neural visual processing speed that an athlete has. Okay. And we can literally tell just by using just that one neural tracker. We use VR as well, React Performance, that gives us a lot of vision metrics and reaction time metrics. So those are the metrics that we take a look at. They're basic, but once they want to master those basic metrics, okay, they just go from this level to that next level
Right,
because from a skill set, they're already talented and they got
right.
really good skills. They just need that extra push, that extra neural visual stimuli to get them to that level.
And I guess for you, it's a different situation too, because you're working with elite level athletes who are already in the professional stage. So it's not like they have a ton of deficiencies. They may have one or two areas where there's mild weaknesses that can be strengthened. But for someone who, let's say, is not starting out, but is proficient, but will not be at the pro stage at the moment, they're still young. How would you recommend they start incorporating neuroscience in their training?
I think start the first things that you got to consider if you're a student athlete is what are some of the basic things that are out there that won't cost me too much money to invest in, or if I want to get a trainer, look for people like us in the area that are in social media or word of mouth or
Mm,
whatnot, and ask for their help. Some of the easiest things that you can do is get some tennis ball and do some tennis ball drill. Do some juggling, bounce them up against the wall. Something as simple as that,
right. It
trains
could
the
function as
vision.
an assessment almost.
Yeah, and hand-eye coordination is very important. Let me see if I could put this little video on right here. Something as simple as working on peripheral vision. Right here, what we're doing with Carlos Condit, he was a UFC fighter, is we would work on this peripheral vision, hand-eye coordination, accuracy, and timing, all at the same time with one simple ball toss. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. So if we were working his right peripheral visual, okay, and near far focus, we would throw the ball from this side. So as he saw the ball coming, he would punch and catch the ball with the left hand, and he would do the opposite with the left, and then we would go at 45-degree angles and then right in front. So this is what it would look like right there if you could see it.
Yeah, I could see it.
See?
And you know what? I'll have you send that to me
Yeah.
and that way I can include it in the podcast too, because
Okay.
the quality isn't coming through that well, but
Yeah.
I get the concept, the way you explained it, and that makes sense. But it would be nice for others to see, and that's something that they can easily replicate at the gym, or even if they have, you know, a little training area in the backyard or in their garage.
Yeah, absolutely. Another easy drill for basketball because they're dribbling the ball with the right hand and give them a tennis ball and they catch the tennis ball, and and
Yeah.
then pull it through between their legs and get the tennis ball over here and get the basketball on the left hand and start doing it. And you flip flop, behind. And I mean, just get creative.
Yeah.
That sort of basic drill, once you master that, you have great hand eye coordination, great foot movement, I mean, processing speed goes up as well. So there's a lot of little things that you can, I mean, basic things that don't cost anything.
Yeah.
And they're good.
And I love those even for like a warm up. I was on doing a podcast with Hybrid Training, and he does a lot of tennis ball drills. He's been doing it for a while, but there's different drills that he has to activate like the cerebellum. There's different drills for different things. Some are
Yes.
for more for eye hand coordination. So some of those I'm already seeing at the pro level tennis players doing a lot with.
A
I
lot of them.
recently saw, there was I believe it was a football wide receiver who was doing it, and obviously we see juggling with basketball players all the time now, and
Yeah,
so these little
absolutely.
warm-up drills that they're doing for a reason, right? They're activating their brain, they're activating their eyes, and it's getting them primed for a better neural outcome so they can get ready to activate that system into their performance.
Yeah, one of the first guys that in NBA that brought this neurocognitive efficiency training is Steph Curry.
Mm,
Steph Curry does for years. One of his neurocognitive efficiency specialists. He runs a shop out of South Carolina. I can't remember his name right now, but yeah, all those basic drills have gotten Steph Curry's brain and so efficient that I mean he's just for the stature that he has, for the physique and
mhm,
whatnot. He shouldn't be that effective in the NBA, but he is one of the best, and
yeah.
that's because he has learned how to make his brain more
It's so
efficient.
amazing because I don't know if you know, but Steph Curry has keratoconus. It's an eye disease that,
That's
I
right.
treat all the time, and that makes your static visual acuity, meaning how well you can see something far away, not
Uh,
clear. It'll be blurry, right? With
yeah.
even with glasses, but with the special contact, we can get it better. But I think by doing these neurocognitive drills, he was able to compensate for all the blurry vision he had straight ahead by getting better peripheral vision, by having better eye-hand coordination, by being able to make quicker decision making. And I
Yes.
think he was able to do that and make compensations because he was better at all those other visual skills where the straight ahead vision wasn't too good. And now that, he has contact lenses that is helping the keratoconus, I mean, now he's just unstoppable.
Yeah, wow. Wow, that reminds me of we worked with this UFC fighter who had broke his ankle in just a freakish break on a fight, and he took a whole year off to recover, and that's when he contacted us. He says, "Well, I'm rehabbing, might as well work with these neurocognitive guys." And he was going through this physical therapy and everything too, but we started using the synaptic strobophobic glasses.
Mhm.
And we saw that when he was moving, when he had the glasses on and we're doing some cognitive flexibility drills, he wasn't overcompensating for that injury. It's almost like the brain was in shock. Something is wrong with my eyes. So this
Mhm.
is first priority for me, you know. Let's grab some neural networks and start firing away to overcompensate for this. And that helped him a whole great deal. I mean, just a whole great deal. So and then I later saw that there was an actual research about that using those synaptic strobophobic glasses to overcompensate for injuries.
Yeah, and it's so key, if you have an injury to definitely work on your brain because you don't want that portion of your skills to decrease or rewire in a different way. In fact, this is a time to prime it because it'll enhance your recovery.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Why stay down if you're rehabbing something and you can train what's up here? So when your body is healed up, the neural networks are there. All you got to do is just put it in motion now. It's so important.
Yeah. Do you watch a lot of UFC and boxing?
I do. I try to watch as much as I can. During my time off, I just like to just relax. Read.
Yeah.
I'm writing a third book, so
Oh,
that's
another
taking a little
book.
bit of time.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm writing a lot of book. I'm introducing the quantum, biology of performance into it. But yeah. So, how about
Who's
you?
your
You like
favorite?
sports or what?
Yeah, like who's your favorite UFC fighter? Like who's active right now?
Ooh, gosh, there's so many. I really don't have a favorite. Favorite.
Who do you think's the best? Like looking at their skills, their decision making, who do you think right now is the best?
And John Jones.
Oh, that's an easy one, huh?
Yeah, yeah. That guy. We never worked with him, but we worked at at his gym. For the longest time. And
In Texas?
no, we're in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's right. He's in New
Yeah,
Mexico.
Jackson. Yeah, Jackson Wink. And yeah, he's just the guy's just he's a phenom. He's just people say, oh, he's got all the genetics, but it's not that. The guy studies. He puts his mind to work.
Yeah.
He recognizes that the mind, the mental piece is 90% of the fight. The rest is his training.
Yeah. That's really well put. Can you say that one more time?
What's that?
You said the mind is 90%.
Yeah, the mental game is 90% of the fight. The rest is your training, your skill set.
So 10% is more of the training and the physical skill set, but 90% is truly where you win the fight. Is that mental
Absolutely.
part of the
When
game?
you gas out, it's not that you gassed out. It's that you're bringing through in the towel for get through the
Yeah,
towel.
that's amazing. So I know we talked already about like how to prevent your mind from gassing out, but if we go now to like, let's say, do you watch boxing much?
Not as much, but yeah, I still watch one.
Okay. So let's go a little bit into boxing here. So MMA boxing, I mean, obviously there's a lot of similarities. You're working on similar things when you're striking. But if we're a boxer and you have rounds, you have 12 rounds and you have a little bit of break in between rounds, what do you recommend from a neurocognitive perspective if you are down, like you're losing, right? What should be said to the fighter who may be aware or not aware that they're losing? And is there anything you can do to help them have a better mindset to finish out the fight?
Yeah, I think that the self-talk, the support from the corner, should be that. That corner is a sacred space. That's where that fighter needs to feel safe and comforted and supported. Okay. The last thing you want to do is start yelling at the fighter. You're this, and you've seen it. You've seen it
Yeah.
happen. You've seen it happen. But let me tell you, the best coaching that I've seen is when the trainer gives him a strategy. Okay. But this is what's going on. I want you to breathe in, breathe out. At first, have him breathe, catch a load of breath. Now, listen to what I'm about to say. Okay. You're doing this, you're doing that, but I need you to do this, and I need you to do that. Okay. If he's got another assistant trainer, he lets him go. You tell him, and this assistant trainer might tell him, give him his 2 cents worth. I want you to do this, and I want you to do it. When he does this, you do this. Okay. You got a chance. Who's the best? You are the best. Okay.
Right. So
Let's get out there and let's do it. And you got to be, and the other thing is you got to be truthful. Okay.
right.
You can't
So
tell a
don't
fighter
just
you're
lie
winning
saying
when they're
you're doing
fact
really
not.
well.
Yeah, it's like you want to tell that employee, if you got an employee, you're doing a great job when in fact they're not. And then come end of the year, you give them the review, and then you give them a bad review. Well, why did you wait the whole year to tell them, that he wasn't doing or she wasn't doing a great job?
Right.
And you do a disservice. So trainers can do a disservice. And there's a lot of old school trainers out there. And if some of you listen to this, have an open mind. There's a lot of old school trainers that say, you know what? Any type of training is brain training. Isn't the brain tied to the body? Yes, it is. And you're right. But there are certain stimuli that you can add to your brain. You can train your eyes in certain ways that are going to optimize the body, brain enhancement, integrator function for performance. And that's all we're saying. You optimize. It's a tool. It's an extra edit tool that will give you a competitive advantage over those that who are not.
I'm going to go just back I love that, but I'm gonna go back to that athlete who is in the middle of his boxing round. He's on a break. So you mentioned the what you've noticed the best training method is, or the best coaching would be, tell him what he's doing, tell him how to improve it, and then let him know that he's got this, or he or she's got this.
You want to end it off in a positive note
Right.
because as he puts his mouthpiece on and he's ready to stand up, you want that brain to be in a positive state. Okay.
Now
As it
is
is,
this
this boxer's hurting. He's
right.
probably in pain. Okay. So all of those things count. Those little things count.
Yeah. Is
You
this
got to
the
be supportive.
positive framing? Is that something you also practice during the visualization
Absolutely. Absolutely. The
phase?
visualization. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You got to live that moment, whether it's in real life or imagine, visualized. It's in here and it goes to your heart because the brain and the heart communicate. For every signal the brain sends to the heart sends twice the signaling. So it's now known that the brain has memory as well. It's got about 40, 50,000 neurites that hold memory. Okay. So as
You're
well as
saying
the
that the
gut.
heart has memory, right?
Yes.
Yep.
And the Heart Math Institute, if you haven't heard of them or heard of them, whatnot, take a look at the research that they do, cutting edge research. They did a Marine Corps program a few years back when I was in the Marine Corps, and I participated. Great, great institution. And yeah, so that's so important.
Yeah.
That support, that creating that safe space. Where everything that you've trained for and that you've worked for is not only on the line, but for yourself, but there's a team there for you, win or lose. So we're not going to let you lose. We're here to support you to win.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's take a trip back to when you were in the Marines. Tell me about your experience in the Marines and how that shifted, or if that did shift your mindset into how you started. Because when you were younger, you were doing some martial arts and MMA boxing things,
Yeah, I was
right?
wrestling. I was wrestling in
Wrestling.
high school and boxing as well. And I boxed in the Marine Corps.
Oh, okay.
One of the reasons I didn't pursue boxing in the Marine Corps and moved to North Carolina, where the Marine Corps boxing team is I just wanted to go to school too. And my dad used to tell me, I said, my dad was a boxer. And so he used to tell me, listen, boxing is not easy. You're going to get hit a lot. You're going to risk a lot. But you seem to be a smart type. Go to school. Just stay in school. Don't get your head pounded. But I still love the sport. I love the
Yeah.
sport. So,
Well,
but
you
yeah.
integrated it well. How did the Marines shift your mindset with what you do today?
Oh, geez, it's something that is hard to explain because it's more of a being like a childlike, a child that's curious. I've always been curious. How does this work? How does this person do this? How can I get that? And
Mhm.
and in the Marine Corps, same concept. Yeah, they put a lot of stresses on you and this and that. A lot of your training, a lot of yelling and boot camp and a lot of discipline. And that's where the childlike of me, would take effect. Look, how can I be a better Marine? What can I do to be a better Marine? What can I read? What courses can I take? Who can I associate with? How can I be better in my habits? And that led me to be more of a mental guy than a physical guy.
That makes sense how you became a neuroscientist.
Yeah, yeah. So
You've
I was
always
like,
had that.
yeah. So I'm like, let's learn. Let's learn from this. What
Right.
happened with this? And for the longest time, I in my latter years in the Marine Corps, I was a criminal investigator, and obviously I was on call for any type of crime that would happen on the housing, on the bases, and the areas that we had jurisdiction, and to include murders, suicides, and stuff like that. And I responded to two suicides separate. One, a Marine shot himself, a Marine military policeman shot himself on the gate and he had a big hole and the brains were splattered all over inside the gatehouse. And another Marine, an older Marine, a staff sergeant, committed suicide by hanging himself with his belt in his closet, and his tongue was out when they discovered him. So I had to, yeah, I mean, as a criminal investigator, you process the crime scenes and all that type of stuff. And for the longest time, I would these two guys would appear in my dreams. I could be dreaming of me fighting in a boxing match, and all of a sudden I take a break on my seat on my bench, and here comes a guy with a big tongue. Oh, don't give up, stay
God.
sharp. And I'm going like, oh, what the hell are you doing here? You know? And it's like, oh, and then I wake up, and then a few days later I would have another dream, and I would be, at a supermarket or talking to somebody in my dream, and or walking, my daughter or son at the park, and the other guy would appear and it says, oh, look at this, look at my hole. And I would see his hole and his brain missing, and I would go like, oh my God. So those experiences, led me to really understand the fact that there's trauma that occurs and you can't help it. And
Yeah.
when it's got you. And if you don't learn to control it, if you don't learn to master yourself in controlling those emotions and the way it's going to shape your life, I used to, I, man, I used to hate going to sleep. Now I love going to sleep because if they appear, the emotion has been cut. I've came to terms with them. They still come to
How'd you
my
do
dreams.
that? And this can be the same as an athlete who suffers a bad loss and a traumatic experience, being choked out or being knocked out. Like, how do you get through that like you did?
Yeah, time heals all. When you have a nightmare like that and you wake up, that memory is right here. That's what woke you up. It was so impactful that it woke you up. In other words, it hits your parasympathetic, right? Your amygdala just fired to say, wake up, you're in trouble, and your motor and everything jumps up, says, I'm awake. So once you start to realize that you're in full control, that it happened,
Right.
and that this is just a reminder of it, and it has no emotion attached to me. I mean, there's technologies out there now that are, or patents that are being filed for to erase memories, and
Wow.
they're already doing pilot trials on it, and the patents are pending. It's going to be just a
And it
matter of
worked.
time.
It
Yeah,
worked.
it's only a matter of time. But you don't want people to have gaps in their life.
Right.
That's what memory reconsolidation and the work of Dr. Joseph Ledoux at New York University Neuroscience Park is all about. You want to have those memories. What you don't want is you don't want the emotion, the trauma attached to it no more.
So you wouldn't recommend erasing that memory. You would just teach them how to take the emotion
The
away
emotion off
and control the
and
memory.
control that emotion. Absolutely. So when it reconsolidates, when it seeps back down, it's an updated version. It's actually an updated version of you because every
Mm.
time you get closer to that, your performance is going up.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with hardship. Like you'll see famous athletes, right? Their kids don't have the hardship they had, which makes it a little bit harder for them to have that drive and
Yeah.
change and mold themselves to be the version that would create the highest success.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Same principle.
To
Yeah.
bring it adapts.
Yeah, you're adaptive. I mean, we have a very adaptive brains, right? That neuroplasticity, very adaptive, and we've also used in the past the halo sport. They're like headphones, right? But they would do a transcranial direct current stimulation on the motor cortex. So they during the COVID days, I think they went bankrupt or something happened to Halo Sport. They closed shop. They're already opening shop. They sent me some emails because it was one of their favorite customers back in the day. And now they're doing the transcranial direct current stimulation on the prefrontal cortex and the precuneus area right here, understanding the fact that this prefrontal cortex and this front areas right here also control a lot of the eye movements and where we want our eyes and our focus to go to. So so
What's
I'm
the
very
goal
excited
of
about
the
that.
little stimulation?
Yeah, the transcranial direct current stimulation. I got one that we use. It's a pan brain. It's called pan brain, and it's what it does. And I'm really excited about because I'm going to start using on these two fighters that we're going to be working with here.
What's the goal with it? What do you achieve with it?
The goal is that transcranial direct stimulation. What it does, it sends an electrical signal. It's actual sending electricity through the skull into the target cortex, which is the prefrontal cortex area. And what it does, it excites the neurons and gets them in a hyperplasticity mode. There's about 40, there's about, I would say about close to probably 20,000 peer-reviewed articles and papers written on transcranial direct stimulation. It's not a theory; it's a proven fact.
It's
Um,
science.
so it's science. So we use that to get that prefrontal cortex in a hyperplasticity state, according to the research that's out there. Depending on like on a 15-minute session that you do at a low to medium level, you might give the brain about 80 to 90 hours of this hyperplasticity state where learning something can be a lot easier than when the neural networks are not in that hyperplasticity mode. So that's very important for us to learn byte combinations, cognitive flexibility, dual tasking,
So
that
then you
sort
do this
of
like
stuff.
as a like it's like a pre-workout for the brain.
Like a pre-workout. Yeah, like a pre-workout before we start to do anything else for that. Our typical sessions last about 2 to 3 hours with the athlete.
Wow. Because you want
Yeah.
to maximize the electrical stimulation,
Yeah,
hyperplasticity.
yeah, and then we got to put, we got certain protocols that we want to make sure that we are doing to custom fit for that athlete. That's why we do an assessment with that every athlete to know where that athlete is and what are the things that we need to get done and what are their goals. Their goals are our goals. So
Yeah. Well, I have one last question because I know I promised it would only be an hour, but I'm
that's all
just
right.
curious to know, what does an assessment look like for you for one of your athletes?
Well, we take a look at several common factors that are common to athletes, no matter if you're a basketball player, football player, boxer. Neural visual brain processing speed. The vision is so important because the brain holds the visual cortex holds the most real estate in the brain. So the visual sensory is very important for any sport. You know that, right? So the brain processing speed is very important. So we measure for that. We use several things like the neural tracker, React, VR. Hand-eye coordination, something as simple as using a Hiko stick. You know what the Hiko sticks are, the different
Yeah, with
colors.
the red,
Yeah,
blue, and
yeah.
green colors.
Something as simple as that. We throw at them 10 times with the right, 10 times with the left, and see where they're at. And then we look at their visual acuity, their peripheral vision, their near far focus, their split attention, which those are for fight sports. That's very important because most blows come, and back and forth kicks, near, far to near, and you have to be able to split your attention
Yeah,
to,
especially because a lot of times the hands are in front,
yeah,
so you're literally splitting your attention.
yeah, absolutely. So, um, we include that during the assessment and the reaction times for those things. Also, cognitive flexibility, task switching. Okay, how fluid are they? Do they
Yeah.
struggle processing it here to with their body motion? And then their ability to quiet their brain.
Yeah. Well, that's probably the key, right?
Key,
The end
yeah,
stage. Can we get into that quiet
zone.
brain, flow state?
Yeah, absolutely. And then measure their flow states with real-time neurofeedback.
Yeah.
While they're doing whatever they're doing, put an EEG, take a look at what's happening inside their brain, or with the using the computer programs that we have, get get them to move things on the screen, with just their thoughts, to
Right.
get them in that flow state.
Yeah, with curious to know if you do this too, but do you use EEG when you're doing visualization too to see if it's effective visualization?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things that we take a look at when we're doing that visualization process is the overthinking. Because if you put somebody through a visualization process, and then we've seen them at first when they're starting to visualize, you're in there, you're throwing some shots, you're throwing the combinations and whatnot, and all of a sudden their brain starts to go into high beta. Like, why would you overthink that? Why are you overthinking? Do you not remember? And then once the visualization is over, you've jotted down your notes where you saw those cues, those high beta waves. You start to have the conversation. What were you thinking? What was happening? And they'll tell you, I know he's got a mean left hook, so I know that this is not probably going to work for me. So it's kind of like even in my imagination, trying to establish which shot I should take. Like,
Right. So even in the imagination, there's some self-confidence and issues there.
and there's self-doubt issues, and
Yeah.
there's based out of legitimate concerns. I said,
Yeah.
have you discussed this with your striking coach? He knows about it, but we really, he seems to think that, the combination that I'm working on will mitigate that. I said, okay, do you believe that? You think so?
Obviously not.
And that's one of the things where that confidence comes in. It's like, you know what? Trust the process. Okay.
Yeah.
Trust the process.
You
Just
got to
work
do
with
it, right? Trust the process.
it. Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate your time and all the insights that you gave today. I think this is going to help a lot of athletes just to know about how higher level athletes are training and what are a few things they can start doing now. That way they can, when they get to that level, then they can do some of the higher level EEG things. But we can start with that tennis ball drill. And I'm going to, once Dr. Velasquez sends me that, I'll post that too. And that
Cool.
way, somebody who's watching, if they wanted to do the drill at home, they can do that same drill.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the best way for someone who's interested in training with you to get a hold of you?
Yeah, just go up. I'm on Instagram, on Facebook, as well as LinkedIn and TikTok. So, yeah, Dr. Roman Velasquez or Neuropeak Performance. And I'm
Okay.
there. And just send me a message. We could work remotely. I could give you some drills, whatnot, to do remotely. And we have some remote programs. And, one of the most fascinating things that's happening right now through the Meta and the VR world is that you can actually go into a gym and do a complete neural workout virtually, and I'm really looking into that possibility of, just creating something like that. Because
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of athletes that will never get to work with me one-on-one inside a gym, for whatever reasons. But if it's done in a virtual space.
Yeah, I mean that's I think where the future is headed. Maybe not for pro elite level athletes, but at least
Yeah.
for athletes who can't travel, athletes who can't afford in-person instruction. I think
Yeah,
that's better
absolutely.
than nothing, you know?
Absolutely.
So I'll link all of that down below. Thank you once again.
Thanks a lot.
And we got to do
Appreciate you.
this again. I know
Yeah. Oh,
there's so
yeah.
many topics we haven't even touched. I want to talk
Nothing.
more about that water, the spring water.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
there's
Yeah, we
so
can
much
circle.
more, there's recent studies even showing with like skin cells and the absorption of light. And there's so much more that we can really
A
get,
lot. Yeah.
deep into.
Yeah, absolutely, Doc. Thank you for having me. Great
Yeah.
podcast show, man. Can't wait for the next episode to come out.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank
All
you.
right.
Do you have a busy day?
Oh, yeah. 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 Yeah.
What
Yeah.
time is it over there? It must be dinner time, huh?
No, yeah, it's about five something.
Well, that's not bad. Okay, that's not too bad then.
All
Well, I'm
right.
gonna head out, but again, thanks, and we'll talk more soon.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.